And they are going to give you pictures where they ask you to find the perimeter of different types of polygons. And with these, this isn't a square, it isn't a rectangle, so we're going to need to do the distance formula for all of the different sides to be able to find the perimeter. So that means we're going to, in order to find the perimeter, we need to find the distance for DE plus EF plus FG plus GD, and find the distance of all four of those to find the perimeter of that quadrilateral. So we're going to find the distance for DE, and if we look, DE is a vertical line, and if we count that out, DE is going to have a value of 9. So we can start off with our perimeter is equal to 9 plus. Next we'll look for EF. EF goes like that, so we're going to need to use our distance formula to find it. So looking at E, we've got 2 minus F, negative 8, plus 10 minus 4 squared. So looking at EF is going to be equal to the square root of 2 minus a negative 8 is 10 squared plus 6 squared. So EF is going to be equal to the square root of 100 plus 36. So EF is going to be equal to the square root of 136. And if you check the square root of 136 on your calculator, it doesn't end up being a whole number. So this is another example of we're going to want to leave the square root of 136 the way it is, because if we round now to a decimal and then add them together, we're using a rounded value, which creates more of a rounded answer. And this is asking for rounded to this nearest tenth, so it wants you to round at the end and not right now. So we've got to do 9 plus the square root of 136. And then we've got to do FG. FG is going to be equal to the square root of negative 8 minus a negative 6 squared plus 4 minus a negative 2 squared. So FG is going to be equal to the square root of 8 minus a negative 6 is going to be a negative 2 squared, and then 4 minus a negative 2, 6 squared. So FG is going to be equal to the square root of 4 plus 36. So FG is going to be equal to the square root of 40. And again, that's not going to come out to be a nice whole number whenever we take the square root of it. So we're going to leave it as the square root of 40 plus GD. GD is another diagonal line, so we've got to use our distance formula for that one. So looking at GD is going to be equal to the square root of negative 6 minus 2 squared plus negative 2 minus 1 squared. So GD is going to be equal to the square root of negative 8 squared plus negative 3 squared. So GD is going to be equal to the square root of 64 plus 9. So GD is going to be equal to the square root of 73. So square root of 73. So we need to put this in our calculator to get the answer. So we're going to do 9 plus the square root of 136, and you've got to close the parenthesis on here, plus the square root of 40 plus the square root of 73. And that's going to give us 35.53046286, and it asks for the nearest tenth. So perimeter is equal to 35.53, and if we're looking for the nearest tenth, that's our 10 spot right here. So if we look at the 3, that's the one that'll make it round up or down. So since 3 is 4 or less, this is going to stay the same. So our perimeter for this one is going to be 35.5 units. And then looking at this last one is a find of an area of triangle CDE with those vertices. So the difference between this problem and this problem was this said graph the quadrilateral. So it'll actually give you a grid where you'll click on the different points to graph the quadrilateral on the picture. With problems like these, they're not necessarily going to give you graph paper to graph with. So this is where you'll have to grab some graph paper and graph it. And then if you look at this one, trying to look for it wants area. So area is going to be equal to 1/2 base times height. So we've got to find a base. So we're looking for those vertical or horizontal lines that make a 90-degree angle with the side. And if we check all of our options, none of them do that. So this is another problem with the triangle where we're going to need to create a box around it. And when we create our box, again, we want to make sure that it touches all the vertices of our triangle. And with that, that creates the 3 different triangles that we'll subtract out. So we're going to calculate the area of the big box. If we count the boxes along the bottom, that's going to be 16. If we count the boxes along the side, it's going to give us 18. So area of the box is going to be equal to base times height. So area for the box is going to be equal to 16 times 18. So the area of the box is going to be equal to 288. So then we just need to find the area of the 3 triangles and subtract them off. So area for the first triangle is going to be equal to 1/2 base times height. So let's start with this one over here. So area is going to be equal to 1/2, and our base for this one is going to go from there to D, and that's going to have a base of 12 and a height from there to there, which is going to be the same thing as the height over here, which is 18. And if you do in your calculator 1/2 of 12 times 18, the area is going to be equal to 108. So looking at the next triangle, let's do this guy right here. So area is going to be equal to 1/2 base times height. Area is going to be equal to 1/2 of the base is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 times 2. So area is going to be equal to 1/2 of 4 times 2 is going to be 4. And then looking at the last one, the last big triangle, got that one right there. Area is going to be equal to 1/2 the base times the height. So area is going to be equal to 1/2, and then from there to there is going to be 16, and from there to there is going to be 16. And 1/2 of 16 times 16 is going to be 128. So then we need to take the whole area of the big box. So 288 minus the first triangle, 108, minus the second triangle, which was 4, and minus the third triangle, which was 128. So the area for this triangle here in the middle is going to be 48 units squared. And that's how you find area and perimeter on shapes in the coordinate plane. The second lesson, if you have any questions, make sure you write them down on your guided notes and ask me when you get to class.